Senator Christian Ardondo.
Present.
Senator Reed Blake.
Present.
Senator Fabian Escobedo is excused. Senator Ali Isles.
Present.
Senator Jackie Jacoby.
Present.
Senator Colette King.
Present.
Senator Delaney Koenig.
Present.
Senator Richard Lee. Absent. Senator Carlton Nguyen.
Present.
Senator Priscilla Pereira. Excused. Senator Jason Ramirez.
Present.
Senator Herman Senga.
Present.
Senator Summer Schaefer.
Present.
Senator Samuel Wade.
Present.
President Pro Tempore Dennis Lazo.
Present.
Personnel Director Ashley Harana.
Present.
Marketing and Promotions Director Raveen Rathod.
Present.
Elections Director Stephanie Rose.
Present.
Outreach Director Jessica Arquidez.
Here.
Senate Secretary Delia Chakri is running a little late. Parliamentarian Mohamed Hussein.
Present.
Vice President of Campus Internal Affairs Fernando Echeverria is excused. Vice President of External Affairs Abraham Galvan is with his sister. Vice President of Finance Ira Shane.
Present.
President Nafi Karim.
Present.
And myself. Now, before proceeding on to the next item of our roll call, as I highlighted in the email, something that does need to take place according to our Constitution is that after a certain amount of absences, it does require Senate approval to excuse a senator from further meetings. Senator Richard Lee, in attempting, we previously overrode his censure, as you recall from earlier meetings, because he was unable to meet the 12 units when he found his class. The class that he had took place during the Senate meeting. This will be a closed ballot vote. To be able to excuse, it's just require a majority vote to be able to excuse for future meetings. If not, this will count towards an absence. So at this time, I'd like to ask everybody to kind of just tear off a small piece of the agenda that you have in front of you. Senator Jason Ramirez.
Just a quick question. Have you seen his schedule that says that he has a class during this time?
No, but Lori can.
Okay. Just make sure.
What does it mean if there are unexcused absences?
At a certain point, it would lead to censure and potential loss of Senate privileges. Thank you. Senator Colette King.
Are we allowed to have a discussion about this before we vote?
We would have to move into closed session. Right, as for a personnel matter. If you did want to make this a discussion, then this is something that I have to put on the agenda for closed session.
Then can we, is there a way to move this to the end of the meeting? So that way we can have a discussion?
Yes, if you'd like to make that motion, I can
Yes,
open that to the
I
floor.
move this voting process to the end of meeting. Into closed session.
Okay. Motion by Senator Colette King to add closed session to the agenda for personnel. Second, is there a second? Second by Senator Christian Ardondo. All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstain. All right, at 12:10, this motion passes. Continuing on, we have our approval of the agenda in section C. At this time, I'm going to open up the floor to all senators on the motion to approve or amend the agenda. I see a lot of hands. Marketing Director Raveen Rathod.
Motion to add marketing committee to G, section G.
Okay. Are there any other motions on the floor at this time? Senator Jason Ramirez.
I move to amend the agenda and add myself to part I. Section.
Motion by Senator Jason Ramirez to add under collaboration. We have points on the floor at this time. Irish Director Jessica Arquidez.
I motion to amend the agenda to add myself to section G under committee updates for outreach committee.
Okay. Motion by Irish Director Jessica Arquidez to add under committee updates. Were there any other points or motions on the floor at this time?
Yeah, I also move to add myself somewhere, either in item G, H, or I. Have a prepared statement that I want to enter on the record. That I would also like the galley to hear as well as our Senate. So whoever that would be.
That would probably best be under section H for presentations.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and put that in the minutes. Okay, so in voting on the order and the motions which they were received, we have Marketing Director Raveen Rathod's motion to add to section G. Is there a second? seconded by Senator Christian Arredondo. All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstained. Okay, by 13-0, this passes. For efficiency's sake, I'm going to unite all three motions into one, unless there are any objections to that. Okay, seeing that, then motions to amend all amendments to the agenda. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Delaney Koenig. All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstained. Okay, by 13-0, the agenda has been amended. Okay, moving past the section D is a set of minutes haven't yet arrived, so we'll move on, maybe come into those a little bit later. Move on to section E of our ex officio. At this time, if there are any ex officios in the audience right now that would like to come forward and present the Senate, please just state your name for the purpose of the minutes, and you may begin.
Hi everyone, Courtney Parker, RJ. The only thing I have to report on this week is all the zone councils have finished their first programs for this quarter, so they'll be working towards their second programs, which will be later on. And then also this coming Monday, we have our winter quad social, which is something for all of our senators across all of the communities. All 4 councils will bring senators, and they will participate in spirit competitions, essentially. Competition between all 4 buildings, more for bragging rights than anything else. But yeah, it's more to bond our senators together, and that's all I have this week. Is there any questions?
Thank you. Were there any ex officios in attendance at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on now to section F for public forum. We now extend this to any members of the gallery that would like to come forward and present the Senate on any business or ideas, anything that you wish for Senate attention. So at this time, please, any members willing to come forward and simply state your name for the minutes purposes and you may begin.
I'd like to be able to present something at this time. My name is Stalin Soto. I'm a student. The transfer outreach program has brought up some concerns, and we would like to be able to present that at some point in time for some of the concerns that involve the transfer students. One of those has to do, and mainly the overall concern would have to be to address how much importance is given to the transfer student here on campus. So if at some point in time, and I don't know if this is the appropriate moment in this meeting to do that, but with that come other concerns that branch from that, and then if at some point in time we can present what those concerns are below the overall concern of importance to the transfer students. I think it would be, that's one of the ideas that we wanted to present at this time. So if that's sufficient information at this time, please take into consideration.
Could you relay that for a second?
Sure.
Do you have like a specific matter that you wanted to present? Something that, it seems like you have something there, but you may be reluctant to lay it out.
Well, and I don't know if this is the proper time.
Well, it's definitely
Yes.
public
Yes.
forum.
Okay, all right, fantastic. One of the main concerns, to be able to put that out there, is the transfer outreach and the transfers and commuter lounge, which was at some point in time proposed, and as it was informed to transfer students that it would be open during the first week of the winter quarter of 2015, remains yet to be active. So we were hoping to get a little bit more information on that and what's going on with that. I believe that funds had already been approved. This is information that was given to us. So we needed to get a little bit more consistent information as to when this is going to take place and if it is so or not, so that we can move on from there and inform all the other transfer students that are concerned about this with the correct information. one of the others, and to move on to, as I mentioned earlier, there were several concerns. And one of the other ones, it's a little bit more on the larger scope of things, and it has to do with the way that transfer students are treated as incoming transfers, as opposed to maybe the brand new students, the four-year student that's coming in, and the difference there. It seems like some of the students, we are feeling that there may be a little bit of a discriminatory feeling there that doesn't allow us to participate in the same events. For example, one of the rules to be a Senate ECAB member, correct, hinders a student that's a transfer to come in and participate as an ECAB member. There may be something there that could be maybe investigated and taken into consideration and then further on improved if that, would satisfy every member of the Senate. I think it's proper to take into consideration all students and give the same attention as we do the incoming students on the first year students here at the university. So those are the main points that we wanted to address.
Okay, I'll take a show of hands. We have Outreach Director Jessica Riquidez, Senator Keith Brown, and Senator Sam Schaefer.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I didn't get your name. What was your name?
Stalin Soto.
Stalin Soto. Nice to meet you. I'm so sorry about the lack of interest and importance that you think that transfers are being, just the fact that you are being ignored. I definitely wanted to help address certain issues. Unfortunately, I don't know why the Transfer Student Lounge has not been open, but I will definitely work with you on getting the answer and helping speed up that process.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, feel free to meet with me. I know Jim Sandoval is always accessible to us, so we can always meet with him. If you wanted to sit in on a meeting, we can schedule something all together. And with the treatment of transfers, I also understand, knowing that a lot of the transfers are coming in, a lot of the resource centers open up their doors to them and they automatically talk about, the first years get this or they get that. And it's understandable, but we want to make sure that you feel the same, welcoming and great pride and congratulations of transferring. It's a huge, huge step. That's already, you're no longer a statistic. The fact that you made it out and you're here at UCR, you're a Highlander and you're proud to be here, I think that's something that you should definitely be rewarded and be treated well for. So unfortunately, I don't have any answers, but I did want to extend any type of help that you wanted to meet or just anything that you would need. I'm more than happy to move.
I appreciate it, and I'm sure that this is something that all of the transfer students, as we have met in the past and we have talked about this, would feel that it's necessary. That's right.
I'm so sorry, I was gonna ask, are you coming on behalf of an organization or anything, or if you have part?
Right, so supporting the transfer outreach program and supporting the transfer students, that's basically my main focus here tonight.
Thank you. Senator Keith Brown.
Thank you, Stalin, for being so brave. We need more individuals like you. To respond to a few of your concerns, most importantly, the transfer commuter lounge. I've been working very closely with Vice Chancellor Sandoval to get that project completed. There were some hiccups in the beginning with the type of construction we wanted to do. We thought that it would be something that could be done on $10,000 budget with utilizing the maintenance workers we have here on campus. However, as we went in and found out that was not the case. So it requires $40,000 more and a different level of technical certification to do the construction. However, there is good news. The $50,000 was granted, and the last email I received from the Vice Chancellor is that the construction will be completed at the end of this quarter. It was supposed to be complete by the time we came in this quarter.
Okay.
However, those few things were unforeseen and caused it for a delay. To respond to transfer representation, I agree. This is one of the main things why I decided to run for office, to represent transfer students.
Much appreciated.
And so since we have established in ASUCR a transfer non-traditional task force that provides representation from the transfer student groups that exist, as well as other groups that support non-traditional students. So that's something you might want to take a look at, and that's through our Vice President of Campus Internal Affairs Office. Also this year there was a transfer student convocation. Were you able to attend?
Yes.
Okay, so again, these are things that will continue going forward to represent transfer students. And lastly, there was a student life focus group today to answer those very questions that you raised. So now you have, within a year and a half, you have representation in ASUCR and student life, and the Vice Chancellor's office is very responding to the needs that transfer students raise. So as long as you're out there raising the hard questions, and as long as you're out there gathering support for these issues, the students in office here, administration, as well as other campus departments will continue to be responsive. There was a problem with representation in the past, but I see students like you, I see students like Erica Perez, Taylor Valmares, who are picking up the torch and going forward. So I'm giving you my word. Vice Chancellor has given me his word that he'll continue supporting transfer students. And so I just want you to get more involved in our office, particularly the Campus Internal Affairs Office, as well as continuing your work with the transfer outreach programs. Because that's where you'll find that the conversation is being had. The communication lines are not as great, but the conversations are being had. So I just want to continue to encourage you to take advantage of all the opportunities this campus has to offer you in the short amount of time that you're here. And the last thing, I want to respond to you raising the question as to transfer students not having qualifications to run for certain offices. Well, we had a big debate about that last week. And there were some things left over today, and just I received an email from another transfer student who simply said, President of the United States didn't need 1 year of congressional experience to become president. Why should a transfer student need 1 year of ASUCR student to give them their So thank you for coming today, and I promise you that we'll continue to make transfer students more
An integral part.
of this campus.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, on the last next sentence.
I also wanted to thank you for coming out and bringing your concerns here. And I was just to echo what Akeem said, I would really get involved in those groups that he mentioned. And I was just going to mention that we're working on editing the Constitution and bylaws to make it more inclusive for transfer students. And so, yeah, just like those groups. And thank you for coming out.
Very good. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure, and thank you everyone for listening. And look forward to all these great promises coming to pass. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do you mind asking for his contact, or do you have a sheet on there or no?
No, there's no sheet on there.
I'm sorry, Stalin, do you mind giving us your contact information so that way we can be able to reach you?
Oh, yes,
Do you
for
want
sure.
an email or?
My student email is stalins@ucr.edu.
I'm so sorry, what was that, Stalin?
My first name as the Russian leader, S-T-A. And the letter S at the end, so stalins@ucr.edu.
Did you get a number connected to that?
I have a cell phone number.
Well, no, I mean, Stalin S, is it 002, 001?
No number connected. I'm also an employee at Extension Center.
Oh.
That's why.
So I don't get the
Okay.
We're like,
wondering why is
No.
would you like the phone number as well, or?
I think
That
they
knows.
contact you.
Okay.
Thank you.
What do you know? Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much. Would any of the members of the galley at this time who would like to come forward and present the Senate?
Good evening, everyone. First time. So, good evening everyone, my name is Vicente Rodriguez.
And my name is Paula Venegas.
Okay, and we are here on behalf of Leading Educators, Student California Teachers Association. And we are here to present, hopefully, not present, but hopefully see some kind of action going to remove Teach for America off this campus. And reason.
So Teach for America, I don't know if any of you are familiar with what it is or who they are. Teach for America promotes that after a student has earned their BA, they're able to apply to this program, and they are, they get 5 weeks of training, then they are taken into they're placed in a school where they are expected to teach children who are most in need. So coming from an organization that promotes education, not only education itself, but those future educators, we have an issue with this personally because it degrades the fact of the career as a teacher. How are you going to compare someone going into getting their credentials, getting their master's, compared to like 2 or 3 years, let's say, of school to someone who gets 5 weeks of training? You can't compare that. These students, the worst thing is that these students who apply for this program, they don't realize what they're getting themselves into. You know, once they go into a classroom with 5 weeks of training that they get, they don't have the classroom management. They don't have pretty much enough training to be able to teach these children. So that's the main issue we have with this.
Also, there's evidence suggesting that those teachers, those new teachers or student teachers that go out within the first 2 years, if they're not adequate enough to teach their material, the children suffer because they tend to be 2 years behind. And so they would then go a lifelong struggle of keep catching up to their other peers.
Yeah, and how is someone who's only there for 2 years supposed to have an impact on a student's life when they're only there for 2 years? Also, most of these students who go into this program are not going for it because they want to be educators, but because they just need a resume builder. So that's pretty much what we're against as future educators. And we would like to see some action and some support from ASUCR to take some action of not allowing this group of recruiters to come into our campus.
Okay, I'll take these hands in order received. First, I saw Outreach Director Jessica Urquidez, Senator Jackie Jacoby, Outreach Director, Personnel Director Ashley Hirano, Senator Delaney Koenig, and Senator Vicky Brown.
Hi, Paula and Vincent. Thank you for coming out and speaking upon this subject. Just a little background, I actually attended a low API high school, and middle school where we had teachers from Teach for America and what was the other program? Teach for America and City Year. Those are 2 different programs that offer the same similar steps or procedures to get types of, I don't want to say qualifications, but just different ways of training to become a teacher. And I definitely saw what you're raising the issue of. I had some teachers that in the middle of the year quit, and these were classes that I was taking. I think I was taking pre-algebra, I was taking pre-calculus, and the teacher was not qualified. It was very difficult. And then also my senior year, I had another teacher who had done the program and was brought into our school, who ended up being now is still a teacher there after I graduated. So I see both sides to the story, but being that I want to become a teacher, and I also understand the fact that we can't compare a master's degree to 5 weeks of training. I don't know if we should. I'm not disagreeing with you on taking out recruiters, but I also understand the options that students should have. Being if they do want to become an educator and they do want to take this as a path. I feel that it's more important to allow them to understand the entire situation and the impact that they'll have on these children as opposed to taking away that option from them. Because if you think about it, you still have the option of doing Teach for America or City Year after you get your master's or your credentials, and we do have a program here. So I think that would eliminate an option that grad students would have Although I understand that from my understanding, there's a lot of grad students that are opposed to the idea as well. But it takes away an option for those who want to be instructors, and want to use this as a stepping stone to a school that they don't want to attend or to teach at. So, for example, I was interested in it at one point, and then I saw the impact that it had on other students, and it's just difficult to completely remove. But if you wanted to start a campaign on allowing Teach for America to understand the impact that they have on the students and what the reality of getting yourself involved with programs like this, I would be more than happy to help with that.
So we are taking upon ourselves as an organization on campus, leading educators at CTA to educate the public. So like I mentioned, I did mention that the biggest problem is that students don't know what they're getting themselves into. So that's what we want to do. We want to host workshops. Even we spoke about a forum where we would have someone who actually completed the program, someone who didn't. And so variations of students, and like that we would educate the public on what they're getting themselves into, and then see to take on action themselves if it's a choice. But that's what we're thinking about as well.
Yeah, if you can, do you have the general meeting times and contact information for your work review?
For our organization?
Yes.
Well, since we're new, we're struggling with the room, but we do meet on Wednesdays at 7, and it's actually at CSP. As of now, until we find a room, and I can bring that information once we can have it.
Okay. And then I'm so sorry, your email, or I don't have Vincent's, I have your contacts, but I don't want to.
Okay, our contact, so my email is vrodr015 at ucr.edu.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the speakers list is Senator Jackie.
I withdraw it.
Okay. We can help you have this on record.
I withdraw it.
Senator Delaney, go ahead. And then Senator.
Hi, thank you for coming in. Again, I appreciate it. I was just wanting to clarify, so by taking out them, do you mean removing sponsored events by the Career Center, or in what aspect would we?
So I saw the various not organizations, but programs on campus supporting this organization. So I figured that it was because they didn't know what they stood for. So that's what I wanted to see, that they know and they don't, they actually know what their background is and they don't want to support them. So kind of like I mentioned before, educate them, tell them, like, do you know their background, who they are, type of things like that.
Political agenda as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I understand like voicing both sides. That makes sense. I'm just not sure if we could not allow them to endorse a certain organization or not.
Well, we can't prevent them from. I mean, that's
Okay, so you don't
just-
want a resolution that would ban the organization, or?
Yeah, I mean, yes, well, my opinion, yes, we do want them banned, because even the organization started in Harvard. Harvard no longer takes them down, and there's other Ivy League schools that kick them out. So what does that say right there alone? And why are they moving on to the UCs and Cal States?
Okay, well, obviously, I see both sides, like Jessica already said. I would just say, like, we are a public university and we can't really tell an organization that they can't come table or they can't present their materials, and we've had this issue before. But I think that by all means sharing both sides would probably be very helpful. And if you could even do like a joint event or a debate style, I think that would be really helpful. So, thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay. Now next we have Senator Kimbrell.
Thank you all for coming up today. I'm with the Horseshoe. We have to be careful to look at both sides of the issue, but if this is an issue of making people aware of what they're getting into, then that's cool. I really appreciate that. Because I can see how one side it can provide experience, and I can see how one side it can lead to the degradation of both the career of the teacher and the academic progress of the student if they're both not ready. And that's important if we're thinking about future impact of education. So I appreciate you all for raising this issue, because it's not an issue that we can see today. It's an issue that we'll see 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, when we're all probably with walking sticks and moving a little slow. we're gonna be looking to those kids that are being basically not fully educated because of the way the program works, so I get it. And I would support you all's campaign to make people aware, but I would stay away from language of like ban, just all out ban, because then we'd have, it just would spiral out of control. But education and awareness is usually the way to go. Ban is like a final last resort, but I understand your passion, you don't want to hear it. But sort of steer it in the manner that you want people to be educated, people to know what they're getting into. It's almost like that disclaimer. You got that product on television, they tell you all about it, but real fast. It's like you want the disclaimer to be out there, and so I totally understand, and I thank you all for bringing this issue because it's something that I hadn't thought about, and I'm sure that it's something new for all of us to hear and something to think about. So thank you.
Before I move on, are there any people that would like to be added to the speakers list before I close it?
I already added.
You're already added.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on, we have Department Director Rubin.
Hi, thank you for coming. Yes,
Sorry.
Just two things real quick. One, I know it sounds like you're trying to get the word out about your club. So on a side note, I just wanted to let you know that ASUCR provides free advertising to the Highlander. And if you'd like to email me, I definitely like to help out clubs in kind of maximizing your exposure on campus through different resources that are already on campus. So if you do want to do that, my email is asucrmarketing@ucr.edu, and you can just send me a message. Second, I do like your passion and where you're coming from. So I definitely, just some encouragement is I would perhaps get some statistics as well. I know in the past, having some statistics really helps out, convincing people, getting both sides of the story, stuff like that. So I'm definitely looking forward to both of you coming in the future as well, and looking forward to working on this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the speakers list, President Nafi.
Thank you for coming out. I would suggest that you work with one of our lovely senators to draft some kind of resolution and have specific asks. We can have a debate about those like asks and how we want to go about this. But yeah, definitely in terms of we could advocate that when Teach for America recruits here, they have some kind of disclosure. Like they have some kind of comparison how their program works versus how a regular teaching career path would go about it. And so doing that would give our students that are considering this the information that they would need to they should know. And like students who want to go into education, maybe they should still pursue that and continue that. Continue through that program to get their experience while having a passion for education. So it's just something to consider. And if you leave your, you already gave your email address, so like we can definitely follow up with you to draft some kind of resolution.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Senator Fleck.
I just wanted to ask if there was any way that I can get that information that you brought up about the Ivy League schools banning it, because I think,
I actually have some articles with me.
yeah, that'd be great. Because to be absolutely honest, I know it was stated that we shouldn't say words such as like ban or anything, but if we don't really know anything about this subject, I don't think we should be giving like direct suggestions about it just yet. I think we should just like inform ourselves. So I really appreciate if you shared that with us, because
So I have 3 different articles. One of them is college students wage campaign to take Teach for America off campus. So this is pretty much USA's United Students Against Sweatshops affiliated with so they were the ones who organized to try to kick Teach for America out of their campus.
Okay.
So this is one, and then I have an open
Do you
letter
mind passing that around so
Yeah.
we can look at it?
and then the other one, this is one, and then the other one is a little longer, and it's
Yeah.
yes, it might have some writing in there.
Yeah.
I know, but, yeah.
Yeah, and just how Nafi said, working with one of the senators, I think working with the senator is better than getting advice right now on the subject. So before anything's said, like, don't use this, don't use that, let's just figure out what this deal is, and then we'll move from there. Okay.
And last on the list, Senator Herman second.
Oh yeah, yield my time to everyone.
Okay, final thoughts.
I just wanted to add that Paula is one of our hard-working, streamlining transfer students here. Thank you, Paula.
Oh, and by the way, another point, we totally support our transfer opportunity program because we are both transfers and this is our second quarter here and we also need that representation on campus. Thank you.
Great, thank you for coming out. And we encourage you to use ASUCR as a resource in the legislative process, please. Okay, were there any other members in the audience that would like to, yes?
So I'm Susan Ortega, Assistant Vice Chancellor in Student Affairs, and I just wanted to remind all of you that we're in the season of recruitment for Student Region. And I wanted to ask each of you individually to seriously consider applying to be the Student Region, and then to really think carefully about your circle of friends and acquaintances and people that you know in leadership circles that you think have talent and potential that you would want to encourage to apply as well. Next Tuesday, the 10th, the Student Region and Student Region President are going to be visiting campus, and the purpose of their visit is to inform students, well, to get us excited about it applying and to help demystify the process, walk us through what it looks like and how it works. And it's been quite a while since there's been a UCR region, so we would really like to work to have us represented again. And there's two opportunities that you personally can participate in. We're doing lunch with the regents for the Senate and the GSA. So I'll probably before the evening is over, you'll have an invite to remind you. And it'd be great if you could just let us know if you could come so we have the right kind of food. And that'll be 12 to 1 and it's in Hub 365. And then if you are not able to do that, we're doing an open forum, and I've been working with Abraham to make the plans for the entire campus. It's been promoted through our site weekly and posters and some other things. But please get the word out for students to come to that. And the open forum, as some of the other consultations during the day, have two purposes. One is the same purpose that I told you, which is helping students understand the regent process and encouraging application. But the second is really, the regents are here as your representative to the regents and the university. And so they also want to hear about issues and concerns that are on their minds about UCR and about the system. And so the meeting is for both things. And we are incentivizing students to be there with pizza and a raffle for Magic Mountain. Probably do some other lesser raffles too for probably a YouTube. It's probably a YouTube or iTunes card and some other littler things. So please consider coming to lunch next Tuesday, and please consider coming to the open forum, and please consider applying for the regent session.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If you could remain behind us.
Oh, of course.
Alright, I'll take these in order I saw them. Senator Jackie Jacoby, Irish Jessica Ortiz, and Ms. Greg Ashton.
I'm just wondering, when and where is the open forum?
Same place, Hub 365.
12 to 1.
4 to 5.
4 to
Same,
5.
yeah, 4 to 5.
Same day.
And it likely will go longer than 5.
Okay, thank you.
Can you repeat Hub 3?
Hub 365 for the lunch and the open forum are the same.
Irish Jessica Ortiz.
Was that your own question?
Yeah.
I received an email, I'm not sure if it's regarding the same thing, but about a meeting, from 10:30 to 11 in
Yes.
Hub 36.
So just so I can tell you about the whole day that was planned, what we usually do is plan a day based on what the regents tell us about how they want to spend their day. And Sadia and Avi are particularly interested in reaching out to students that have not been represented as regents in the past. So they asked us if we would schedule separate meetings with African and African American students, Chicano, Latino students, Asian Pacific Islander students, Middle Eastern students, LGBT, to be sure that those students and those student leaders particularly have a conversation with them about applying and that it open forum as well. So the day is a series of half-hour consults with the groups that they asked me to schedule.
If we're unable to attend during that time, are we able to attend like during
Yes.
a different, okay.
So the open forum would, I think in the invitation I said, if you can't come to this meeting, please try to come to the open forum, but you also would be a person invited to lunch.
Oh, okay.
And last, personal recognition.
I apologize, but will you repeat the date again for that forum?
It's next Tuesday,
Oh,
the 10th of February.
thank you.
And the other thing I guess I would want to, I'm the point person on campus for this process. So any student that wants help with it, I'm happy to sit down with them, I'm happy to read their app, I'm happy to, do what I can to help whoever wants to apply be as successful as they can be. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thanks. For any of the members of the gallery that would like to move forward and present the Senate at this time? Okay, seeing none, we will move on with our agenda on to section G, committee updates. First, we'll hear from our legislative review committee, so at this time, I will turn it over to our president of the floor, Devin Boswell.
Hi, everyone. So one piece of legislation tonight, I'll let Akeem go ahead and introduce it because he has authored it.
Thank you, Devin. This is the Brown Law Enforcement Education Act, a work that began back in November, and with help from everybody here on the Horseshoe, we have finalized it to become an act, and it'll go forward. So what we'll be doing is allocating a certain amount of funds to create an awareness and education campaign to educate the community on two things. One, the type of standards and trainings law enforcement are required to undertake and abide by. And two, educating the community on best practices when being stopped or approached by law enforcement. For example, the cop tells you to stop, stop. Don't put your hands in your pocket. Things like that, small things save lives. Just in the investigation and gathering information, the number one response that officers gave is, I was scared for my life, I thought he had a gun. And so, knowing that when you are approached, don't put your hands in your pocket, don't make fast movements. So there will be other tips there. I'm going to be working with the marketing committee to do that, as well as the internal affairs office to do that. And so we just need students to come out and support this effort. We'll be kicking off the campaign sometime next week. And we plan to, first of all, start here on campus, distribute the literature here on campus, and go into the community. But this is all dependent on how soon we can get the materials in. Nevertheless, this bill calls for the new Senate, when they're coming in, to sort of review the issue and see if there is still a need for community education on law enforcement standards and training. If there's not, cool, the bill will die. If there is, I would encourage the new Senate to continue making this effort to make the community members aware. And lastly, I hope we can gather enough support to take this. I've attached a similar bill in the form of the way that the California State Legislature requires their bills, to hopefully have them amend the Penal Code 1359.4, which states that police officers are required to take refresher courses on the ethnic and racial differences among the residents of this state every 5 years. And every 5 years is not enough. There are more phenomena occurring in communities every single moment, every second, and law enforcement should be aware. So we're just asking that they amend to 3 years. So every 3 years as opposed to every 5 years, so over a 12-year period. With the current law, officers have only been trained twice. Well, you can think of many economic phenomena, cultural phenomena, and social phenomena that have occurred in 12 years that officers may or may not be aware of. So we're hoping that with the increase in frequency, officers will be more aware, and then lastly, the public will respond better and see law enforcement taking a proactive effort to learn more frequently about the communities that they patrol. So with this bill, we hope to accomplish all of those things, And I would ask for you all support on passing this tonight. Thank you.
The floor is open for discussion first, and I'll take the speakers list, and once it comes to a close, then Senator Delaney-Koenig, and then our Director Jessica Hughes.
Is this where we would say like minor editing things as well, or no?
You could propose it.
Okay, could I move to amend this portion where it says, educate the community on best practices while being approached, just switch the O and R. And then there's one later down in the document as well.
What line?
Line 12.
On page 1?
Yes.
Was there anything else that
I don't think so.
Alright, our Director Jessica Hughes.
Am I gonna be the only one commenting or
No, reading it, I just wanted to say great job to everyone who worked on it. I got the email Monday when Devin sent it out, and I shared it with a few others before, and I asked them to come. Well, no, they didn't actually come to support it in passing, but they definitely were offering thanks for including this. A couple years ago, Raza Assembly took on the responsibility of meeting with UCPD based on the fact that a lot of emails were being sent out. And which were believed to be targeting certain individuals of a certain community, which include Raza Assembly, after-school programs, CSP. So a lot of the times when the descriptions were made, it would be targeting these individuals, and it was often that these emails were sent out. So when you're walking down the street and you match the description, you would always be, right away held off guard. So just based on the students' feedback, this was very much, you did a great job.
Senator Delaney. What? No, you didn't have, okay. President Oppenheimer and Senator Samuel.
Actually,
Wait, if it was my turn, can I pass it over to Sam? It's okay. It's okay. Pass? No? Alright.
Yeah, this is actually a great bill. A couple of years ago, when I was working as local affairs director, that was the issue, especially when crimes were so high on campus. And essentially, what was happening was we get these generic descriptions, right? One of my my personal friends, he was basically by the poolside of his apartment, and 9 or 10 police officers go up and surround him. And he was just like, what the heck's going on? And essentially, he goes back and sees his email, and it's like, black male, African American male, from 5'8" to 5'10", which is basically so many people. So that was one of the big issues in terms of how do you help the police officers identify, but at the same time where it's not so basic and generic to where so many people of these communities feel discriminated against. So thank you.
Senator Samuel.
I completely agree with this act. However, the title, Brown Law Enforcement Education Act, this kind of seems it's more directed towards African Americans, which should be directed towards
I think it was just a busy last.
Well, there's two symbolic elements there. Yeah, my last name was Brown, but the case recently that caught the most media attention was an individual named Brown. And for name identification, I chose to go with the Brown Law Enforcement Education Act. It's symbolic of the Mike Brown, it's also my last name. And it's recognizable, so that's pretty much it. But if you reading into the bill, it specifies that it's not just about African Americans, it's about culturals and racial and cultural differences. So that's everybody. And so one thing that I do want to be clear is that I love the protest and Black Lives Matter and everything like that, but I like to see human lives matter. So, the whole intent of this is the preservation of human life. And so, yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Senator Jackson.
I think the only, like, I totally agree with both of you. The only confusion was that, like, when people include their last name in the document, it tends to kind of look almost self-serving in a way. I don't think it is. I'm just saying that's kind of how it could be interpreted when you include your own last name as part of the title of a formal document. That's, I think, the only concern. But your explanation clears it up completely. That was the only concern, I think. Personally.
Senator Sanders.
Is there like any reference to like the brown face in this document that like could point out why it's named that? Because otherwise, read down the line, people will just assume King Brown.
Here's the thing. I know if I put Mike Brown, then it probably would get turned down once we got towards asking the legislature to move it because the case is so politically involved. That's the reason why I didn't put Mike Brown. I mean, I would like to put Community Law Enforcement Education Act, if that would help everyone. Yeah, but it was just more so to keep, it was a symbolic undercutting, like, yeah, this is Mike Brown. It was the most popularist case just this past year, but I wouldn't mind amending to strike Brown and put Community Law Enforcement Education Act, or, yeah, I wouldn't mind it.
Considering you're the author of the bill, I can assume this is a friendly amendment. Okay. Was there any more discussion at this time? Any senators anyone on the horseshoe that wish to speak? Okay, then at this time I open up the floor for motions. Restricted Jessica Arquidez.
I motion to pass this bill.
Could you also include like with amendments?
Oh, as amended.
Okay, alright, motion to approve Community Law Enforcement Education Act by Outreach Director Jessica Arquidez. Do I have a second? Seconded by Cousin Pro Tem Board, Kevin Blossom. All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstain. Okay, 12-0-1. This passes.
And one last thing, my committee and I, we're working on a template for legislation. And hopefully it'll be on the website soon. I'm hoping it'll be finalized this coming Monday. So for those of you watching and for those of you here, it's just kind of like a template to follow when you're writing legislation and submitting it. And yes, that's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Devin. Moving on, we have our Vice President of Finance, Ira Shane, for the Finance Committee.
Hi everyone. So the finance allocations for this past week are as follows. We granted $1,500 to the Pacific Islanders Student Alliance for a grant, $998 to Music Changing Lives, $998 to Mock Trial, $825 to TEDx at UCR, $825 to Women's Rugby. Beta Alpha Psi did not meet the requirements. $908 to Chemistry Club. The United States Against Sweatshops was a no-show. $750 to Anglers Association at UCR, and $908 to Team HBV. That's all.
Okay. Yep, Senator.
Just out of curiosity, why didn't they meet the requirements?
Beta Alpha Psi, they are a new honors organization for accounting and finance. Yeah, so one of their requirements is you have to meet a certain GPA to be in part of their org, and in order to qualify for funding with ASUCR, you have to be open to all students.
I open the floor for questions at this time. Senator Delaney Cody.
I move to approve these allocations.
Okay, motion to approve budget allocations by Senator Delaney Cody. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Hakeem Brown. All those in favor? opposed? And abstain. Okay. Vote of 13-0-0. The allocations pass. Continuing on with our committee updates, we have first our marketing director reviewing the thon. Okay.
Thank you.
And time to get to your report.
Yeah, it should be pretty brief today. Once again, as y'all know, these are ongoing projects, or I provide quick recaps of events that just have occurred. If you do have events coming up in the future, please let me know as soon as possible. Dave just let me know about a couple events this week for external affairs, so that was really kind of him. So yeah, let's get started. First, the on-campus resource fair and Meet ASUCR was Monday and today, respectively. So thank you all. I saw a lot of people on the horseshoe that came out to the event. It was a really enjoyable event. We got a lot of pictures there, a lot of student interaction. One of the cool things members of the marketing committee suggested, including Green, which we did today, was having tiles there. And we started off with 40 tiles, and student orgs can decorate those tiles while they were at the event. We actually ran through them within the first hour, so I mean the interest was really strong. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to take them home and start baking them one by one. But eventually they'll be turned into a display that hopefully we can hang up at the Bears Den and interchange periodically. Next, the elections logo and the video. The elections logo is almost finalized, and the video, I've received the script and I've compared that with the illustrations. So I'm actually meeting with the illustrator tomorrow to begin filming, and then hopefully by tomorrow night I will just continue to edit and narrate, so it should be on YouTube by Friday. So that's what the estimate is going to happen. In addition, I've been working with Travis from GCAP. He's recently finalized the information for quick tips that GCAP would like to pass out to the student body. So I'm currently designing a bookmark that will be delivered and printed by Monday to GCAP. In addition, their new logo's been made, so they are going to be ordering their tablecloth and supplies, which I will help them coordinate once they finalize which items they'd like to get. Next, one thing we did have to push back that was for this week was the Our Gear flyer. So for that, it's actually going to be finished on Monday, just due to the events that came up this week. So once again, what this is going to be is a 5x7 flyer. It's going to be placed in all the freshmen's mailboxes, just to inform them about Our Gear coming up and how they can get their hoodie. Next, we finally finalized the paperwork for Auto Club Speedway to come onto campus. They're actually going to be here next Wednesday, the 11th. So just be on the lookout for tabling signups for the horseshoe members, because they will be bringing up a pace car, a race car, on campus. They'll be driving it on. They have all the permits for that. That's been passed. So in addition, I'd like to set up the ASUCR tent and also promote some events. Which leads me to my next brief point.
And that is time. There's a motion to vote this time. I respect the disagree with this.
I motion to allow Ravine Mutad, marketing director, to finish his meeting.
Motion by Jessica Kides, do I have a second?
Second by motion.
Second by Senator Green Blake, all those in favor? All those opposed? And abstain. Okay, this motion passes.
Thank you. So they're going to be coming up next Wednesday, which leads me to my next brief point, because I know Jason's going to talk about this. But I just got emails for the doodle for Project DTR meetings, and we've also included the business development interns that I was speaking with for the past 2 weeks. So I'm glad to see that's getting underway. I'm sure all of us will give you an update once we've met. But the goal is, if we do meet before next Wednesday, is to include Project DTR along with the Auto Club Speedway as they represent a nearby business, and I feel like this would be a very fitting event for Project DTR to be released. So yeah, that's all. Once again, you have my email. Please email me with any events y'all have coming up. Thank you.
Can we direct a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a question or comment, I'm not sure what it is exactly, but are you gonna be having additional tiles? Cause there was an issue raised about the tiles today at the Meet Senate event.
No, sorry,
Yeah, so there was different organizations that were not able to have a tile made for them, and being that there was a limited few tiles. There were also a few tiles that were repeated. I believe only one was repeated, but I didn't know if you had the option of getting more tiles and that tabling, opening it up to more organizations that didn't get a chance to come to the event, or
Yeah, so the thought process behind the tiles for this event, I actually just went out and bought them in the morning at Home Depot. So the thought process was just that this would be something nice for students to do while they're having snacks or meeting Senate members. So we didn't really anticipate that the response would be this big. But I'm really happy that it is because I'm going to continue on with, making the display cases and stuff like that, because that would be a bit on my own time with just some woodworking and stuff. But I'd be more than happy to order some more tiles, and if anyone on the horseshoe or any Senate member would like to coordinate with me to get the word out to clubs that they can still come in to make a tile, or we can give them tiles and then they can take it home and decorate them and then bring it back to us. I'm completely open to that. So I would, however, appreciate if someone else wanted to support me on this. So just come speak to me on that.
of course, I'm already telling you I'm down.
Thank you. All right, so we'll work on that.
Yeah, and again, it was an amazing turnout. I really enjoyed it like that.
Yeah, thank you all for coming out. It was great.
Parliamentary Goal of Sane and then Senator Jason.
I'm not sure if you already addressed this, and I'll like to catch it. But how you said all the freshmen were getting stuff in their mailboxes? Are transfer students also getting art gear?
That's something that will open it up after it's transferred, after it's distributed to all the officials.
Appreciate it. 'Cause I was gonna ask if like the transfers need to be informed as well.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just handling the marketing.
Senator Jason Reyes.
Yeah, I guess I just want to briefly say that I love working with you, and that my senior design group is actually working on making the art garden pretty much completely sustainable. And we were thinking about asking for some outreach funds at some point. And I think that if we get some of those tiles in the art garden somewhere, like on one of the sheds or something, that'd be really cool. So I'll talk to you more about that, but I think that'd be something really cool. So I'm more than happy to help.
Thank you.
Great, okay. Moving on with our agenda, we have next Outreach Director Jessica Kiedis for outreach.
Hello everyone, thank you again for coming out tonight. Just some basic updates. Today we had our outreach committee meet. It was at the same time as the Meet the Senate event at 9 o'clock, so I excuse all senators and thank you so much for all those who still updated me and let me know that they weren't going to make it. I totally appreciate that. I actually assumed that you weren't going to be able to make it. The committee meeting will take place every Wednesday at 9. We wanted to make sure that everyone is available so you would know the times and dates. It's going to be inside the conference room every Wednesday at 9 o'clock, we said. For additional information, we have the dates for the outreach application. So the outreach application has been out the entire quarter, but just some important dates to jot down is February 17th at 5 p.m. is the actual deadline for the outreach application. I'm going to be going around to the to past outreach events that I have on file. So if anyone wants to help me or if they know about any outreach events that haven't applied, I can go ahead and meet with them. I also am willing to meet with any organizations that have not had outreach events. Last quarter we had a very successful outreach hearing, and a lot of organizations that have never had outreach events were able to host them and get the funds necessary to do so. For the outreach hearing, it will take place on February 20th at 8:30 a.m. to 11:30, and that'll be in the conference room here at ASUCR. So the deadline is always 3 days before the actual hearing, so the deadline, like I mentioned before, is on the 17th, and the hearing would be on the 20th. I also wanted just to extend any information or meeting times to anyone. I have my whiteboard and there's like the open dates. But if y'all want to just email me, you can always do that and I'll be happy to meet with you. If you've never, I know Richard emailed me about a possible outreach event. If y'all want to host an event, feel free to contact me. We can also do our own events through the outreach committee. So that's a way if the transfers wanted to host an outreach event and bring any transfer or community college or anyone on campus, you can always come to me and I can give you the funds for that. If you go through the whole application. So. But yeah, if anyone had any questions, you can always email me or come to the committee meetings or just stop by my desk.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Okay, moving on with our agenda. We have section H, presentations, and here we have our elections director, Stephanie Rose. And I'll turn the floor over to you.
Should we pull up the first document, the ASUCR General Elections Management. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi everyone, I just have a few updates for you in terms of elections. I don't need Senate approval on any of these, but for the sake of transparency, I wanted to report everything tonight. So the first thing that I'm going to report are the ASUCR General Elections Mandatory Candidate Workshops. They're listed on the projector screen. I will make sure to send them to the Highlanders so they can be published, and they will be going out in a campus-wide email later this week, along with the video that Ravine, Colette, and Jackie have all assisted me with, which I'm very grateful for. So all of these will be going out. My committee and I are trying to be as accommodating as possible, so this year we are going to be holding 7 candidate meetings, which is more than last year. If you want to go ahead and move to the next document, let's go to the endorsement form. 2015, thank you. So this year I decided to create an endorsement form. I know last year there was an endorsement hearing, but it wasn't as successful as the elections director hoped it would be. So this year I did something a little bit more informal. So it basically says we, and they would list the org or club that they represent, hereby support the candidate or party in their efforts to run for office in the ASUCR general elections. By signing this form, we agree to the following. We may not financially support any candidate or party. We may support the candidate or party by passing out materials that the candidate or party funded and had approved by the elections committee. We may support the candidate or party by advertising them through the use of social media outlets. We agree to the possible publication of our support for this candidate or party. And we're also permitted to mention a candidate's party affiliation. And then for that, they would just list their name, and then I'm asking for 3 officers' signatures.
President Pro Tem Martin Faso, Senator Check.
Are there guidelines or restrictions on which clubs and orgs can and cannot endorse? Because last year I know there was a question on whether or not like Panalytic and other like IFC, FSIC organizations could endorse. So is that everything is kind of?
I'm okay with it being everybody. They just can't be departments, that's all. So as you know in the elections code, like departments cannot support you, and then of course ASUCR cannot support you as well.
Okay, Senator Jackie.
Yeah, I have questions about the first, so number 1, the financial support. So say if like a sorority supports a certain party and attends their fundraiser, if they had a fundraiser, could parties no longer have fundraisers basically? Yeah.
That's not the same. What I mean by financially support, I mean they cannot go out and purchase materials for you.
Okay.
So like in the scope of campaigning, how you, a candidate or a party would purchase your own materials, organizations may not contribute to that.
Can that possibly be like added or like included more in that like?
Yeah,
that kind of thing? Cool.
Senator Herman Sanger.
I had a lot of problems with the endorsements that happened last year. So just a quick story. Last year, the election director promised that there'd be an endorsement hearing. He emailed all the clubs like 7 times. It was actually 5 times. I still have all the emails. And he said that after a club were to endorse a party, that it would show up in the Highlander. It never showed up in the Highlander. I personally went to elections committee and told them that either ASUCR should apologize to every club that took time out of their day to make the endorsement hearing. He never did that. He promised me he would. I still have those emails. So I personally have a just kind of preconceived notion that I don't like endorsements. So I was kind of wondering what exactly does an endorsement from a club entail if it's not necessarily anything they can already do. And the other question I'm asking is, you said it needs to be 3 officers of the organization. I would encourage you to maybe say it needs to be some sort of vote, because I do know there are a lot of clubs out there that have more than 3 members. What if 3 go one way, 3 go another way? You never know, and you don't want any situation in which a club is divided. And also another thing is, I personally am against club endorsements because, I don't believe that just the board of a club single-handedly, represents every single member of that club. Some clubs have 200 members, some clubs have 5. So I personally am against it, but if, elections committee wants to do it, I'm for it. However, I would just encourage that there should be a little stronger regulation for the formal endorsement. I don't agree with just 3 board members.
Just repeat this and then marketing director reads.
I just had a question regarding maybe the issue of kind of off the lines of what Herman said, the board members possibly having more than 3 members. Is it possible to endorse more than one party?
The thing about this is more for the candidates and the parties. When I spoke with students who ran in the election last year, and some of you I spoke to about this before, they just kind of said they didn't want the endorsement hearing itself, they wanted some type of formal endorsement form. So this is what I came up with. It's more for the candidate, more for the party to be able to say, okay, this organization endorses me. They don't have to do this is not a requirement by any means. I just wanted to point out in terms of what you were talking about, it wasn't published, that's why I included number 4. We agreed to the possible publication of our support for this candidate because I do intend on releasing that information. And then additionally, in terms of it only listing 3 officers, I think it's kind of difficult on my end to mandate how an organization or club wants to endorse or advocate for a candidate or party. Because I don't know how many members they have, I don't know how heavily their officer situation is weighted. I just listed 3 kind of as a guideline. If it is up to that organization if they want to do a vote or if the officers want to speak on their behalf. I can't really dictate that. Are there any more questions?
Yeah, I think you answered a lot of them right now, actually. So, it's nice to see that they can endorse multiple parties. Just one thing that I personally felt from last year was including fraternities, sororities in that endorsement process. I feel like might just get a little overly complicated because, as Jackie brought up the point, a lot of times parties have fundraising drives, and if one of the party members is affiliated, then you have that fraternity or sorority coming out to support and buy food or whatever to get that money, to get that get funds for that party. So I would just see it as a conflict of interest because it's being so regulated actually. So I would just say that in terms of fraternities and sororities, I kind of liked it when it was just more unofficial instead of an official endorsement.
Do any of the elections committee members want to respond to that?
Senator Jason Ramirez.
Yeah, so all I want to say about the whole fraternity and sorority thing is, last year we saw that there was multiple fraternities and sororities that were running, and there was at least 2 pretty much. It's pretty apparent on the horseshoe, right? So I don't think that's going to be such a big problem. So I understand where you're coming from, but I don't really see it being such a big issue, especially because there are usually 2 people from different fraternities and sororities running, so against each other or with each other.
Senator Lane,
I personally didn't feel it was a conflict of interest because your sorority fraternity will go to those events anyway, regardless if it's a formal endorsement. And as far as, I didn't feel there was any conflict of interest between parties. It's fine.
Our District District Yes.
I just had
Senator Ashton Brown, are there any other hands at this time? Okay. Senator Reed Blake, okay. And if there are no others, I will close the speakers.
I just had a question just because I'm not a part or affiliated. A lot of the times when we were being asked or if we were to ask of endorsements of fraternities and sororities not being affiliated, would that raise any issues with kind of ISD or any other council if you're endorsing an individual that's not a part of your organization? Would that have any complications or anything?
Next we have Kika.
Sorry. Would you be interested in sort of creating a volunteer registration? Or, for example, last year there were a bunch of people representing many campaigns, and nobody knew who was what, and sometimes the volunteer didn't even know much about the party that they were working for itself. So, and then that's one thing. And secondly, I think that if some volunteer is a part of a campaign, then in essence, that volunteer is representing that campaign and its platform. So their actions should also be considered as a part of the party's platform. So that's why I'm asking, would you consider having parties registering their volunteers and then putting an amount on them, putting a cap on the amount of volunteers?
I see where you're coming from. I think that almost seems a little too complicated because say I'm running for Party A, that would mean that I would just go up to people and say, I'd like you to endorse me and I'm gonna register you as a volunteer. I feel like that's more, that's an action that the candidate or the party has to take, and that doesn't necessarily involve me in my position. I mean, unless you can clarify that at all.
So here's the scenario. Let's say somebody forms a party, they have 50 volunteers. Maybe the cap on the volunteers is a
By
little
volunteer, you mean
overboard.
they're not a part of the party,
Oh,
they're just assisting you in campaign.
Well, I mean, like, for example, if I worked on Jose Medina's campaign, anything I said or my action would reflect Jose Medina's campaign. So, for example, it's no different here. The campaigns are formed, the platforms are laid out, and the candidates are selected. Anybody that's representing that should also be held accountable for their actions on behalf of their party. So, for example, if a campaign volunteer goes down the poster, well, so what? What are we going to do about that campaign volunteer? That's my issue.
I do understand what you're saying, I just think it becomes too complicated because what if, so you're running for Party A, and what if you register your volunteers, but then you have me go rip down some of these posters? Do you know what I mean? I feel like it would be unnecessary work.
I don't want to use the time.
I'm so sorry, I think this is necessary, but because I don't really understand what you're.
I think what he's trying to explain is he's saying he wants people who may not be affiliated with the candidate or party, but if they're assisting them, to be held accountable if they could be accused of a violation.
Yes.
That's kind of where you're going with this. Yeah, that's kind of where it's difficult.
Division of labor, yeah.
I mean, because they're not technically applying for candidacy, so they're not agreeing to be providing violations for them, and they wouldn't have consequences. And I do definitely see what you're saying, and I agree that could be something that we can look into, but I'm just not exactly sure how to implement it.
Yeah, well, that's why we should talk about it further, but it's just something that we should take a look into, because, if I'm working for Team Akeem, and I am out of line, I'm not morally sound, I'm not ethically sound, and I'm out doing a whole bunch of things that the candidate, him or herself, will get in trouble for, I think that sort of jurisdiction should extend to anybody signing up to help the candidate win.
Yeah, you have this order.
Okay, I motion to open the speakers list to have a longer discussion.
Okay, motion to reopen the speakers list by Abish Deskirkides. Seconded by Senator Collecting. All those in favor of reopening?
I object to consider the motion. And I would actually ask to amend the motion to add it to the end of our.
The closed session meeting?
Yeah.
Add it to
Oh,
closed
okay.
session.
I have another idea.
I agree.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, I wanna, I do.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor at this time to add this discussion into closed session.
Is that after or before?
If the motion to extend.
Yeah. Give you the first motion.
And then
So
I
you
would
can't
second.
interrupt that motion, so you have to let the motion and the second.
Okay, you're right. Okay. So motion to reopen.
Motion to reopen the
Correct. Motion to reopen the speakers list by Irish Director Jessica Martinez and seconded by Senator Collecting.
Before, Monica, point of clarification, what is the purpose of you moving it to the end?
Time.
Okay.
For the sake of the.
Okay, that's fine. There's a vote on the floor at this time. All those in favor of reopening the speakers list? Okay. All those opposed? Abstain? Alright, 5-6-2, this motion does not pass. Okay. Last on the speakers list, we have Senator Greenwood.
Oh yeah, point of inquiry, I just wanted to ask if there was any way that you were regulating the first point, and if there was, then what the repercussions would be if you did find out that a group was endorsing a candidate or a party financially.
Good question. I suppose it would go to judicial to determine if the candidate or party received a violation. That's the only way that I could regulate that. I just really wanted it to be clear that they cannot provide any financial support. It's more of an informal way for orgs to, if they want to post on Facebook about a candidate or a party, things like that. This was just something that some of the senators asked me to do when I first took my position, and they said that they didn't want a formal endorsement hearing, but it seemed there was a consensus that most people did still want there to be some form of endorsement. They didn't want it to be cut out. But I'll look at
Kind of a question off of that, point of inquiry. I don't technically think the elections code says that a organization cannot donate money to a certain campaign or party. I think the elections code says there is no limits in regard to campaign expenses. It also says ASUCR specifically cannot donate any money. But I think technically organization is allowed to donate money to a party or to a campaign. So I'm not sure if that first point is in line with our constitutional bylaws.
I do still have 2 more things to present, so if you're all comfortable with that, I'll look into it and bring it back to you next week. If you can go to the Constitution, candidate Constitution.
I thought that was a correct file, we weren't able to.
Oh, that's fine. This one I can just read because I couldn't open that. This is in regard to what we discussed last week, so the changes in the elections code. So as you recall, Part 1, Item 2, Section A, Number 6 in the elections code states, all candidates are required to read and comprehend the ASUCR Constitution and the description of their position as stated in the ASUCR Constitution and bylaws prior to filing for candidacy, and should be able to summarize their duties of their position. So this was something we all voted on last week. So I just made an official form. It lists that bylaw, and then it says you can find these documents at asucr.ucr.edu. Please review these documents in order to understand the requirements, obligations, responsibilities, and duties you obtain if elected into office. Also, please review and understand the ASUCR Constitution, as it will become one of the most important pieces of legislation you will need to abide by if elected into office. Sign and date the following and return it to the elections director by the first day of campaigning, which is March 30th by 8 p.m. in it just lists a spot for the candidate's name, signature, and date. So I just made a formal form. We all talked about that last week. And then I have one last thing to discuss. Also, something we talked about last week was the bylaw change in the elections code about campaigning in the housing area. So as you requested, Lori and I met with Mary today from RHA, and she referred me to their housing policy 1.24 soliciting. So this was actually something that was included in the elections code previously, but due to our amendment last week, it was taken out. And she pointed out that it says no advertising, recruiting, campaigning, selling, or soliciting is permitted within the UCR housing, dining, and residential services facilities or in their adjacent properties without proper authorization. And then she also referred to 5.06.1. UCR housing, dining, and residential services facilities are considered private property, and unauthorized solicitation is prohibited. With that being said, she did ask that campaigning be consistent with last year, and it is not allowed in on-campus housing areas or resident halls. She basically explained that she feels like the housing areas are supposed to be places, to quote her exactly, a place for a student to go back and to decompress. So she didn't feel like the campaigning environment is appropriate for a place where they reside. But additionally, we did discuss another option. So if candidates and parties, once they're established, feel like they want some type of way to reach out to the students who are living on campus, she did agree to set up an organized event, which I would organize with her, in which parties can showcase themselves. So I don't know if that would be in terms of like a debate, if it would just be like an event that we would hold where candidates and parties could talk about themselves and their political platforms, but that is something she agreed to. So it will stand, they cannot have posters, you may not campaign in on-campus housing or residential areas. However, we do have the option if we want to plan something for candidates to showcase themselves. And additionally, she is willing to allow general vote posters. So make sure you vote this week, go vote for your ASUCR representatives, things like that. I just wanted to provide all that feedback, but that's basically all I have in my presentation.
Okay. There was nowhere I put the, oh, sorry, I'll restrict your district.
I'm so sorry, I don't know if this is allowed, but a student from the galley had stepped out before the elections had finished. But I wanted to know, is it possible to address any issues that that student had? Or do I speak to Stephanie?
Probably would be better to speak about the matter.
The student left, so they're not, I'm not able, the student wasn't able, so they texted me their information that they wanted me to address.
Yeah. That could be public comment.
Well, the public forum passed.
There's public comment to be able to come back to presentation if the student's able to come back.
Okay.
I can leave it up to your judgment call if you feel it's something
Yeah, I
that the
can
Senate
go-
needs immediate attention.
Yeah, I can ask them to just get back.
Okay.
I'll see if they're interested.
Okay, well, without further ado, we'll move on with next item on our agenda, collaborations. And, oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
Cool. Could you pull up that email I just sent you?
When did you?
Maybe 5 minutes ago.
Could you also send it to, Sensor?
Email?
ACHLK01.
One more time.
ACHLK001.
ACH.
Okay.
Give it to me one more time.
ACHLK001.
Her age, also right there.
001. All right, there we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, thank you. It's on its way. In the meantime, a couple weeks ago, I raised a question asking were textbooks and the professor who has composed the text is synonymous, and whether or not students would be charged again. Is it basically a subsequent charge if a student then had to go out and buy the text that the professor composed? And it only matters if the professor who composed the text is teaching the class in which the text is assigned. So that's the only place that it matters. If Akeem taught a class and assigned Reem's book, it wouldn't matter because Akeem got paid for his intellect for teaching the class. Reem got her royalties and residuals for her book. But if Akeem teaches the class and then Akeem assigns his own book to the class, then is the student paying for Akeem twice. And so I've been hearing a lot of feedback, especially with the Highlander article. A lot of people have been talking about it. Even professors have done, clicker polls in the classroom to ask students how they really feel. And I mean, there was some problematic responses because of the way that the professor asked the question. And the fact that most students had already bought the book. But nevertheless, I put some thought into it and I sort of went back to the career that I had before I returned to school. And so that's intellectual property and corporate law. And so I want to read this statement for the record to answer the question of whether or not a professor is synonymous with the text that he or she has composed, whether or not students have paid for the professor's intellect once? My answer is yes. The question deals with the double compensation for the property of one individual's intellect, and that's a key point here. If course fees cover the professor and their intellect, then the student who pays a fee to take the course has paid for the professor and their intellect. If a professor teaches a course and assigns a mandatory text that he or she has written, then students who have paid the course fee, which covers the professor and their intellect, are subsequently paying for the professor and his intellect twice by purchasing such text. In conversation, I've heard many things, one being from professors who state they don't make much profit anyway, and another, they could not upload, scan, or distribute their text for free anyway. When synthesizing these two comments with a major premise, we have to turn to intellectual property laws. Let me begin by describing what intellectual property laws protect. Under the United States Constitution, intellectual property laws protect matter from the intellect that becomes property thereafter, which is property derived from the intellect. When this is factored into the major premise, then it becomes obvious that a professor and his or her text are synonymous. If it were not so, then professors would scan and upload his or her text and distribute it to students for free. However, this is not the case because the texts are protected by intellectual property laws, prohibiting the professor from doing so. Therefore, a professor and the text that he or she has composed are synonymous, and the student who is ordered to purchase a text that a professor who teaches the course has composed, that student has paid twice for the same intellect. So I wrote that out because it seems it's going to answer a lot of questions, particularly when professors respond and say we don't make much profit anyway. Well, that answers the question. We're paying twice for the intellectual capacity anyway. And then when you ask the professors, well, why don't they upload, scan it anyway? They tell you they can't. Why? Because it's protected under intellectual property. Property from the intellect, property derived from the intellect is what we already pay for to attend the course once. So when the professor subsequently give us their text and we have to buy it, we're paying for that intellectual property twice. So the question is solved. Yes, the text and the professor are synonymous. The next step is, what do we do about it?
There are any hands at this time. Anyone who wishes? How are your history, please?
So I know that, oh shoot, sorry, thank you. I know that Fernando had mentioned this before about a certain course that we're taking. So for example, Professor Najarro had a huge delay on all of his books that he had his class purchase. So from my understanding, there was copyright issues about him putting it online. He did, however, choose to put it online, but because there is a copyright issues, he can only put certain chapters at a certain time. So he did go the extra mile, which I'm not sure many professors are able to do. But as regards to like making it mandatory for students to purchase that book, just the 2 chapters alone, I've never been able to read other material like it. So I definitely take that into consideration from the professor, with it not being published, any information that's not already out there and they have to create, especially when it goes along the lines of their course. But something that I would hope to recommend is maybe making a copy available to, what did you call it, reserves, that's what it's right?
To be the library reserve.
The library reserves. So that would be out of the professor's pocket, and I'm not sure if that has to do anything with, like I said, going in to them making the money or any profit.
So this is why I defined earlier on that this is a matter of intellectual property. So then we can probably ask, I don't know, maybe Vice Chancellor or somebody else to tell us what is covered in the course fee. Because my understanding is that the course fee covers us being in that class and the knowledge that we are to receive. The knowledge that we receive is property of the professor's intellect. Therefore, when the professor signs his or her own book, that he or she wrote for that class, we are paying for the same intellect twice. This is the reason why they cannot upload it. There's no doubt that some professors contribute to the field. That's great. It's not a matter of if they're changing the field. We don't care about that. What we care about is students having to pay twice. And the reason why they can't upload it is because it's intellectual property, which we've already paid for.
Sorry, you didn't get a chance to finish that. But I just also wanted to comment on my second point of a lot of the courses that we are given here at UCR are banned in other states. So, for example, the Chicano student programs or Chicano sociology or different ethnic studies, a lot of the times the professors are more open, and we are given a privilege of taking these courses at these colleges. So I think we also take that into consideration when a lot of the times this is information that I don't want to say is illegal, but because it's not here, but in other places it would be considered.
But it does not, the question, let's be clear, the question is it intellectual property? Because that's how the argument can become circular, which is why I released this statement, to be clear what we're talking about. We're asking, is the intellectual property that we pay for on our course fees covered once? Yes, it is. So now then, us paying twice for some more additional intellectual property, that is the problem I have.
Yeah, as soon as, actually, would you be able to forward that again? I'll be able to send it to you. I'm going to Ashley.
I just have a question that maybe you could clarify for me, Keith. So you're talking about the price that students pay for the...
Not price. Let's be clear.
Okay, so not money, but you are saying that we pay once for their intellect, and then we pay a second time for the book. So if you don't want students to pay for the book, do you want the professors or do you want the school? Who will provide that book?
See, and that's what I'm asking you all for. What do we do? If we've determined that this is in fact, I mean, it's clear, copyright laws are for a reason. Those books are copyright. That's why they can't upload them. So that means that's the property of their intellect. And if we've already paid courses once for their intellect, why do we have to pay twice for their intellect? That's the issue, and that's where I would like us to debate it and find out a solution. So then should the university consider that and ask the professors if they're in the plan to write a book or assign a book, would they be willing to do an open source where the university would pay a certain fee where we can all access it? Or why don't the professor put it on reserve? There has to be a way around it. And the fact is, this is truly intellectual property. The book is covered by the United States Constitution, which is why they cannot upload it. So that there is intellect. Same as when we pay for the course to learn from that professor. We have already purchased the professor's intellect. So my question and my problem is, we're paying twice. Whether the professor makes 50 cents or not, I don't care if the professor makes 1/10 of a penny. The fact is, that's 1/10 of a penny more for the same intellect.
I'm just being devil's advocate, but I understand. I don't want to pay a bunch of money for the textbooks, but I can also, I mean, if this is up for debate, I can always argue that each student has a different understanding of the book. So when you say that it's the professor's intellect, then the reading can be given off as something different to each individual. So when a student purchases this book, it can always mean more or be understood in a different way than other students. So if the professor is, lecturing and they, have a certain perspective, every student has their own ideologies and way of understanding the reading. And of course, there can be debates on having it very similar to the lecture, and then there's sometimes students who take on a reading and understand it a different way than the professor.
And again, that's going to create a circular argument. It's not about the content of the book. Well, it is the content of the book because the professor wrote it. But the issue is the fact that we have already paid once for the intellect. paying twice is double taxation, and that you can't get around it. That's just it.
Isn't that different?
If you be okay, I'm just gonna go through the speakers list, you can respond towards the end. So, next first we have Parliamentary Momo, and then Senator Reed Blake, and last, RV Director of the top 10.
So I was gonna say with regards to textbooks, so I feel like I get the concern, like to an extent, because like say there's only one chapter in the whole textbook that's related to the class, and then it's kind of messed up for the teacher to make you buy it, even though you're only gonna use it for a few weeks. So I feel like how are we gonna check or regulate the extent to which the textbook meets the instructional goals of the course, and like the reason why it's there. Because sometimes a professor could feel that their work sometimes that sums up, like a sociology professor might think that what they wrote on sociology might be the most qualified thing. So they might require all their students to buy it. And I understand what you're saying about intellectual property and that that you should just teach that social to the students, but where are they going to get the text from? Because the thing is with textbooks and selling to students, a cool 75% of that profit or a little over it goes to the publisher. So what the professor is actually making on the book is quite trivial. You know what I'm saying? So, but the issue isn't the price or how much that they're making for it, but I'm saying where are they going to get this text? Like how is it going to become available upon them without the publisher? You know what I'm saying? So funds for the textbook are mostly going to the publisher. So how is the professor going to make this available to the students without a publisher? Because publishing is needed for the professors. The university pays these professors to publish text, and the more people that use their text, the more prestige that professor gets, and therefore the university gets.
On the backs of students. On the backs of students.
So, but you get what I'm saying? So how are we going to get around the publisher? So how is it going to make this accessible to everybody without the publisher?
We'll go through this one, like,
Yeah, just kind of, I have kind of inquiry, so I feel as though we're regarding intellectual property or intellect as like one whole object, while a book can cover intellect that we are not necessarily paying for by the instructor in that specific course. So how would we address that problem? I think Momo brought up a good point that it would be difficult to regulate this, and for those situations where we are paying for the intellect that the professor is sharing with us in that course, how would we clarify the discrepancy of the intellect that we would need to pay for in a book that covers material that's not covered in class, that is also relatable to, the knowledge that we're getting from that class that we enrolled in. Just a point to investigate in.
Marketing Director,
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to mention, and this is once again only going to be in the BCOE context, because at least that's what I have experience with. A lot of times I feel that the books add value, and I would argue particularly more so when it is by the professor or someone that teaches the same as the professor, because what happens currently is a lot of times there will be books that are outdated or it's a different school of thinking than what we're taught in lecture. And so correlating lecture material with our book is oftentimes really hard. It could be from things like how to solve problems, how to define certain variables, just things like that. So in some cases, I would argue that having that professor's book definitely adds value to the class because it makes the book accessible and it makes going back and reviewing material just as accessible, because there's a lot of times there's fields that are rapidly changing, understanding of these fields continue to change, so I think it's beneficial.
And last, Senator Sanders.
Well, I'm a bio major, so most of the time the textbooks we receive are not written by professors and they're needed to really understand in-depth material. But I did take ethnic studies with Dylan Rodriguez last year or last quarter, and there's not really a way to differentiate between whether the professor is pushing his own agenda or trying to get you to understand more of the material, because he uploaded the actual textbook for the students. Then he had us buy multiple little books to support different organizations on what he was lecturing. So there's not really a way to tell if he's helping you or pushing his own agenda. So how would you differentiate between them?
Okay, great. Yeah, and again, this is the most important thing here. We love field advancement, great. If the professor has taught it in a way or wrote about it or discovered some new fossil fuel somewhere, great. That's not my concern. Okay, so let's be clear and straight on what my concern is. My concern is the intellectual property that we've already paid for to be in the professor's course has already been paid. When the professor himself, because he is added to the field, because he has done great things and advanced the field, and he assigns a book. When I buy that book, I am now paying twice for the same intellect. So how do we figure out, how do we get the book without the publisher? Well, the publisher, the author could do what Dylan Rodriguez did, uploaded his own book. Well, that becomes a problem with intellectual property. So here it is, back to the intellect. My question is, are we paying twice for the same intellect? Let's keep it there. We're great with Dylan. He added to the field as well. Navarro, who calls his book the Bible, he is added to the field as well. However, we paid for his contribution already by him being our professor, by us being in his class. Now, when we buy his book, we're contributing once again. So what I'm saying is, how do we solve that problem? Is that fair to students to have to first pay for a professor and his knowledge and then buy his book again with the same his or her knowledge in it? Again, it's a matter of intellectual property. The very reason why the professor couldn't upload it is my very point. It's intellectual. It's a part of the intellect. And I swear that course fees cover the professor's intellect.
If there are any wrapping up thoughts that are related.
I understand what you are proposing, but I think the problem is inherently unsolvable because there are different varying forms of intellectual property. For example, if we follow your argument, I should be able to go to any concert for free if I already bought the CD of the artist, but that's not how it works because that's a different kind of intellectual copyright. Something that is saying the argument or the points in a different way is a different form of intellectual copyright. If I were to restate a book that I didn't write, but if I were to say it differently with my own spin, then that is now my intellectual property. And so I don't think we can say through the research and creative process that we are literally duplicating the knowledge. I think that that argument wouldn't really hold up because, as many students now have said, those are enhancements and they are getting different intellectual ingredients from the books than they are in lecture. If the professor were simply reading from the book, then yes, I would agree he is restating himself and it is now unnecessary and superfluous. But when it is used as an enhancement and an aid for the classroom, I don't really think that we are in a position to dictate what forms of property they can use.
So we'll wait until after the speakers. I'll allow you to final. Did you do your time?
No, I was just, I was going to talk about something separate. Like, I understand the argument here while talking about intellectual property and how those laws apply here is important. I think that we should stick to the root of the problem, which is that students are paying too much for books.
No, that's not the issue.
That's not the issue.
The issue is clear. If students are already paying to be in the course, why should they then have to pay again for the rest of the knowledge? That's just, it's a straight up and down question. It's a matter of paying once and having to pay twice. And then I guess what we probably all need to do is, I've already done it, is look at what's covered in your course fee. What does your course fee really cover? When you sign up for ethnic studies 2000, what are you getting? What is that, and what are you gonna get? And then you'll see where the argument that I'm making. And it's the very reason why professors cannot just go and upload it, because it's intellectual property, which means it's property of the intellect, which we pay for to sit in the class. So with the same argument about buying the CD and expecting to go to the concert, like you own it, you can use that same argument. You've already paid for the ticket to the concert. Now you own that ticket. To go and have to pay again, you wouldn't like to do that. You wouldn't like to be charged again to do that. You're already entitled to hear the artist's songs. You would not want to be charged again just because he wrote a new song.
But if I want to listen to it on a CD whenever I want, then I would pay again.
We'll go ahead and stick to the speakers. So thank you. We have Senator Jackie Jacoby, Senator of SUCR and thank you. Okay. Is there any more hands? So not Chair Hyde smile. Discussion wrap up. Okay.
Alright, so what I'm kind of saying here is that we're all attacking or questioning different things. And you kind of said two different things. You first asked, are we? And then you saying, how are we? Back and forth, so like what do you really want us
It's
to
right
answer?
there, it's black and white.
Your own words though, so, and, continuing that statement, so I feel like what you're doing is you're, questioning or trying to tackle just a title and a name of an idea, intellectual property, not really tackling the actual issue, textbook affordability, which I think is more applicable at our campus, and students will really rally behind you, because I think that this issue is really large scale, not just our campus, but in general, colleges. And UCR, I think, could start this process easier, tackling affordability here on a smaller scale, not some dramatic shift into making textbooks completely free and tackling this entire property law debate, because we are not really qualified, in my opinion, to define intellectual property and to really discuss it on that kind of scale. Instead, focusing more on students, textbook affordability, and how they can make it better for themselves, not something this broad, in my personal opinion.
Okay, and final comment, Jason.
I completely agree with Jackie. And I also want to add, I mean, if, for example, in engineering, I take multiple professors over and over again, right? I mean, I'll take professors maybe upwards of 2 or 3 times the same professors in a year. So paying tuition or course fee one time, does that entitle me for all those other courses as well? You know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, that's just kind of my 2 cents on it. And I mean, Jackie pretty much hit the nail on it what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you all for your feedback, but I really believe you all are missing the main point of the question that deals with double compensation, the property, paying double compensation for the property, for the intellectual property of one individual. That's the question. Textbook affordability, that is a big issue too. And it's even more of a big issue when the professor who's teaching the class wrote the book. So this is not a separate issue. This is all in one, but this is just a different angle from the issue. And it's a challenging issue. And there are many factors that compose this issue. But to even dive into answering this question is, are we compensating double? Are we paying twice? And so to answer a little bit of that question, you answered the question of why professors couldn't upload it. Well, because it's protected under intellectual property. So no, this is just feedback. And again, this is feedback. Why? Because the professor was asked, well, why don't you just upload it so we can download it for free? Well, we can't do that. It's intellectual property. So if the professor recognizes it's intellectual property, why can't we recognize that it's intellectual property? And then with that, we've already paid for the course once, which should include the intellect or the matter of that individual's mind. Just because they wrote it in the book doesn't mean it's different.
Are you asking us our opinions or just the?
I want to,
I think yes. Do you think yes?
Yeah,
Do you think yes?
can we get a consensus that the
What do you
book
want
is
us to
this?
do?
Can we get a consensus?
That a book is intellectual property?
That would solve the first question. If it's yes, then why then are we paying for the professor's knowledge twice?
Because the if and then they are fallacious in nature, you can't compare them.
Okay, this argument is, I think this is something that probably has to be considered outside of this.
Yeah.
Unless you'd like to maybe go through the legislation process to bring something up to debate. Just for the sake of time, I know that everybody has your article to be able to read on their own. And so maybe you'll have individual questions afterwards, but we should be bringing that in. Moving on to section I, on collaboration, we have Senator Reblay.
Good evening, everyone. So this is a more lighthearted matter, but I do appreciate the conversations that we have, as deep as they may be or light. But this collaboration was one that I thought of at the leadership conference that me and Senator Delaney just hosted this past weekend. It was a great success, just so you all know. Thanks to all of those of you who supported us. But my collaboration that I'm going to be offering you all is to create a geo-filter for the application Snapchat. So it would, for those of you in the galley who aren't aware of the application, it's basically just a small app that you can take pictures or videos of You can send them to your friends and then they'll disappear. And a geofilter is something that will pick up on your geolocation, and then depending on if there is a geofilter for that location, it'll have like a graphic that will be representative of that location that you're at. So I thought it would be cool for UCR to have it because it would not only increase campus pride within students, but also visitors. We have a lot of traffic for students who come and visit our campus, high school students, parents, etc. So I already drafted an email to write to the Marketing and Communications Department in SBS. I know a few people from that department already, but I was also wanting to get some feedback from you all maybe after this meeting about whether or not you wanted to have that be something that was strictly worked on by pro staffers who are employed by the university, or also open it up like as a concert for students who might have talents who would want to create a geofilter and be sponsored by ASUCR. So talk to me if that's something that you'd like to get started. I'm sure from the research that I've already done on the Snapchat website, it's going to be a free project. So if you all have ideas that we can work along with, then that would be highly appreciated. Thanks.
Thanks, Reed.
I just want to say this is a really good project, and I think it'll make, even though it's not really a landmark, I think it's kind of a landmark like in Snapchat world, and that's cool. And I think that it would kind of increase UCR pride, and that a lot of people would probably start taking more Snapchats at UCR and using the logo. As for like what the logo should be, you asked that, right? I think I thought the bell tower would be kind of cool to have like a little cartoon bell tower, but I know that you had previously mentioned that like certain landmarks can't be used in Snapchat. But I was thinking if we just did a simple bell tower and we kind of made it vague, it would be kind of cool to do more bell tower Snapchats. But great idea, I liked it. Snaps for Snapchat.
Hopefully it'll bring back best friends. Are there any other
Yeah, just real quick, I think that's awesome. I'd love to help out in any way possible. And yeah, in terms of quick ideas, I was also thinking, like we generally, or when I think of UCR, like there's this one common picture which shows like the bell tower, the Rivera arches, and the UCR letters. I think if those three elements were incorporated, it would look kind of cool.
Yeah.
Agree.
Everything.
Or blue and
There's
gold
no
bell
room for
tower.
yourself, it's just
Senator Fleck?
Oh, one more question. How else could we be a part of this project or like in assisting you?
Thanks for asking that question and being proactive. So I'm thinking of sending out the email sometime soon. I just wanted your input on whether you think this should be an initiative that's worked on by students or something that we should delegate to pro staffers from marketing and communications. And I'm assuming that they'll work on this because it is their job to increase interest within the university, so that's one way they could do that. But I think that it's a good place to send out the email so we can start talking to them and see if a collaboration is even something that they would be interested in. And that's a place where we can have like our thoughts talked about and start working on it from there. So I think at that meeting we can probably establish some ideas.
I just want to take a Snapchat with the say we're on board.
Yay.
Yes,
It could be a tartan because it's trademarked here, right? Like tartan.
Yeah.
That was really loud. I don't know why I just.
I was gonna say a little bit more, but briefly just saying it'd be kind of cool if there was a competition with students of submitting. Okay, awesome. Great minds think alike. I'm gonna stop talking.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Reed.
Moving on with our collaboration, Senator Colette King.
Or what?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Jason looks like Colette. I know.
Very similar. Very similar.
Yeah. On paper, in person.
People say that I think I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, but I don't have the minutes from when we actually added it, so
I didn't sign that.
Jason, yeah. Someone.
Okay. Hello.
Thank you.
I'm not Colette. Today I was actually pushed by a student during an awesome event we had at the Bears Den. And basically, he was I don't want to say his name, but he was an older gentleman around his 50s. He's a dance student here, and he has a lot of piercings and a lot of tattoos. And one of the things that he kind of felt, I guess like was an issue was that he didn't really feel comfortable walking around the campus because he was turning heads. And he kind of didn't want that attention, and he just didn't really feel comfortable in his own skin. And then he kind of was talking to me about, like some cultures, they encourage piercings as part of their culture, religion, tattoos, and all that kind of stuff. And he was just kind of was talking to me about things that we can do to maybe, promote, body art expression, or at least, we can't stop people from turning their heads, we really can't, but like what we can do is we can educate. And so one of the things I was thinking about doing, I'm gonna email him, and Christian's kind of, on the same boat as me. I talked to him about it. And one of the things that I kind of wanted to do was maybe have a guest speaker about body art, maybe, I don't know, one of those famous tattoo artists or something. Or have some kind of art expo on body art. I know they have tattoo art expos and piercing expos. And maybe if we could bring that to campus, that'd be something that we could do that I think would be really cool. And, I mean, like I said, we can't stop people from turning heads. What we can do is we can educate. We can at least let students understand that there are different cultures. There are people that, choose to express their body, kind of like how they do want to, because it kind of does suck to have to, walk around and, cover up and things like that. And I mean, I don't have it to the extent as he does. I mean, I feel, luckily I can cover up myself pretty well, but, when I do go home, one of the problems I do have is I come from a very conservative family, and I can't wear shorts. I have tattoos, and I can't wear shorts at all. It's pretty looked down upon, so that kind of does suck. And, I would hate to feel that way at UCR, where I get an education by my peers. So I can only imagine how, kind of unfortunate that must be. So I really do want to at least start an initiative to have some kind of education or some kind of, body art expression, maybe like a day, maybe a week, or something like that. So I just want to know if anybody had thoughts on it. Maybe they already do things like that, I'm not sure, but I mean, I would love to get back to the student and at least give him some kind of updates of what we're doing to kind of help him and people in this situation out.
Do you think this is something that could be incorporated in the etiquette campaign that was discussed at last Senate meeting?
Yeah, that's cool.
In a way.
Senator Jackson, go be the Senator collection.
This is a great idea, Jason. As a proud owner of a really hardcore nose ring, I know, I just scream hardcore. I would definitely be on board to help you out with this. I saw that student today, I know who you're talking about, and that's a great idea, and props to you. I'm totally on board with that, so hit me up.
Senator Clay.
I brought up the etiquette campaign last week, but I think that this deserves something a little different. The etiquette campaign is kind of cool, but I don't think it'll really get the message across. But I don't know, I think you should go to ASPB. They actually are advertising this UCR Tees Walk, and it's a little too late to be a part of it. But ASPB is very into promoting art and things like this. And I know they're UCR Arts Walk. I'm sorry, UCRT. I know, that was ridiculous. Okay, UCR Arts Walk. And they also, in their films and lectures department, they do educational lectures, and I'm sure that they would, you could share the idea of doing a lecture like this, where you can have people come in who are body art. I think there's a lot of people, just Google it, there's a lot of people online that are huge advocates of body art, and I'm sure ASPB would be interested in doing something like that if you spoke with them. Films and Lectures Department.
Were there any more hands at this time? Okay, seeing none. Jason, you wanted to have a last word?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Props to you.
Okay, we'll now move on to section J, public comment. For members in the gallery that would like to comment on anything that they heard over the course of this meeting, this is an opportunity to be able to come in and speak your mind.
Go here. Hi everyone.
And just say your name for the minutes.
I'm I'm also part of External Affairs. I have a few concerns more on the elections. because there hasn't been much publicity about it or marketing at all, I think we should push the deadline, or like I think that's a suggestion to push the deadline, because a week from today we're gonna have already the second workshop, but students don't know. It's like our friends that know. So that's what happens, where our friends are always the ones like being recycled to elections. No political marketing has been done on it. And for example, like there's on ASUCR on your Facebook, there's a calendar to the right, and it has things that are happening on February, but there's nothing to do with elections. So I think that it might not have been intentionally, but just because these elections are pretty important. And I'm not attacking Ravi. I'm just putting out my 2 cents as a student. As I think other students, not only myself, will have these concerns. So on that, I could see a lot of things that are going on with ASUCR, but elections, which are a big portion of February, are not mentioned at all. So I think my suggestion would be a great idea to extend the deadline to apply a week maybe, and to turn in the candidate applications, and yes, more publicity would be happening. So that's my first concern. My second one is I think we should consider putting a cap on how much money political parties could spend. I would suggest somewhere around 2,000. For the main reason that we can see it in our nation politics that a lot of times money runs everything, and so this is not fair for students of low income that can't run because they don't have the $400, $300, $200, even $100 to put in the election. And so I would suggest that we put about $2,000 per party. That even makes it under $100 per student that runs, because the parties are a little over 20 people. And then this way, this will make elections more on values and goals, instead of who can buy the nicer shirts, the nicer posters, who could get hire the best person to do their flyers, who has a thicker flyer with the gloss on it. See, if we put a cap on it, we would make sure and we'd see the true colors of students, instead of like these group of people have more things, and then how we would track this is they would send expenditure, all the expenses to to the elections director, and maybe have a person in your committee be in charge of just that, to make sure that no one's breaking the law, and the law, whatever the rules are, and there would be consequences if they do, maybe point deductions or whatever it may be. And then even donations, I think donations are important, because this is not, this will include donations, because, people who find loopholes would be like, oh yeah, we spent $2,000, but we were donating $5,000. So that would include donations, and donations should also be reported to the elections committee, to make it fair and ethical, and like I said, having elections about values and goals, instead of who has the nicer things and who's able to market things a lot better, because we're able to spend a lot more money. Just my 2 cents on this one specific issue.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let Marketing Director Ravine comment on the advertisement, and then I can go ahead and follow up after.
Okay. No, so first off, I definitely agree that the deadlines are coming up soon, and there hasn't been things pushed out, so I completely agree with that. A couple things that we have done, on our Facebook calendar, actually, it does mention the deadlines for elections applications with paperwork and stuff. Another thing that happened was, just within the office, we kind of had a delay in getting out the elections video. We were doing a video with illustrations and a script, so we actually just got everything together in terms of having the script and the illustrations on Monday. So I'm actually meeting with the artist tomorrow at 1 p.m. to start drawing everything. And I'm flying out for the weekend, Friday at 3 a.m. So hopefully tomorrow I'm also editing and narrating the video after the illustrations are made. So we were actually just emailing about this today, but the video will be up tomorrow night. And that was one of the ways we wanted to get the word out to the student body. In addition, I just got the dates for the exact workshop times. So with that, I'm going to be putting them up on the website with Amy's help tomorrow. So those are the two things that I got this week that I'm definitely agree with you on, and I'm trying to get them out as soon as possible.
Yeah, just to kind of clarify in terms of the video that we're working on is something that we haven't sent out to the campus before, but I do plan on sending it out in a campus-wide email on Friday. But it's to encourage students who aren't already affiliated with ASUCR to apply. So there's literally like a step-by-step, oh, do you want to be a candidate? Are you interested? This is what you do. There have been technical difficulties, which is why it won't be released until this Friday. I did hope it would be released prior, but I mean, I apologize for that because it hasn't been released yet. And then, like I said, Ravine and I are hoping to publish all of the information once that video goes out, because otherwise it wouldn't quite make sense. In terms of pushing the deadline back, there are a lot of logistical issues with that, and for that reason, I can't push the deadline back. So it's February 27th, and there are other components involved in elections for why I cannot push it back. So for example, the Highlander is gracious enough to do the videos and the interviews and everything with us. BCSA IT works with us to publish all of the candidate and party information on our website, and they all have deadlines that they have to meet as well. And then we have the awkward spring break week that, and then finals week as well. So because of that, I can't push the deadline back. It does have to remain at February 27th. I originally did want to push it back another week, but like I said, because of the logistical issues, I can't. So I do apologize for that. In terms of caps on parties, I will look into that. I can't really tell you that I have a specific opinion on it at this moment. I think what would be difficult is determining a set amount, because like I said, I haven't run in a party. I don't know how much parties generally spend. You recommended, did you say 2,000 or 2,500?
2,000.
2,000, okay. So I can tell you that I can talk with my committee and I can get back to you on that. I just can't give you a for sure yes or no at this time.
Will we know in the week?
Yeah.
Okay, it's just it's happening. I mean, you could ask them how much they spent. It was probably 1/4 to 2,000 individual, or around, I don't know. So it was pretty high. So I'm just saying, I'm just looking out for, as a person of working class community, I'm looking out for my my community of the working class. So that's why I brought up this. So it would be greatly appreciated if we could just, and if by any chance it doesn't happen through your committee, is it possible, to put up for vote or something through the Senate?
It would have to be changed in the elections code, so I have to go through LRC. LRC meets on Monday, so if I could make a decision this week, LRC would approve it, and then Wednesday Senate would have to vote on it. Because it is an elections code issue, and we did make changes last week to the elections code.
Cool.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, I'm really glad that you brought up the restrictions on like funding for elections. So what about doing it per candidate? I understand doing it per party, but not every single individual runs with the party, and like how much per candidate would pay. And then it would be like a collective together if it was with the party. Do you think that's like more beneficial, or do you think it should be just like a limit for parties?
I was actually thinking the same thing when it was going through my mind, but I still thought it would be 2,000 even if a person's running alone, for the reason that because the party is collective and they will spend $2,000, they will be, they'll have the same marketing and same publicity as one person running by himself, spending the same amount of money. And then that person would have the same chance. I know, like, that person would have to be really wealthy, but I don't think a person would go to like that extent. So it came to my mind, and I was just like, maybe we should do this. But if we put a cap on someone running alone, they by no chance necessarily they're gonna have the same publicity and same marketing than someone who's running for party. So that's why I kept that as a party. And even individuals who are running alone, not running with the party, then they would use that on their own. But there's a slim chance for someone individual winning. So that's.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I also wanted to ask, what about parties that have materials and supplies that they pay for pretty easily?
I think I wouldn't I think since that's their property already. I'm not 100% sure how everyone feels about it. I actually never thought about, it did come to mind, but I didn't come up with an opinion. But I'm not sure if you want to use it or what you all suggest into like you can't use that again. Maybe make it, I don't know, but I would say like it's up to you all. Like I have no set like opinion on that.
Because that would bring up issues in terms of do we ban previously established parties? Because hypothetically, a party not ran in a previous year would be able to use the items that they accumulated and use them in the election this year. That's just
I feel like that alone could be worth $2,000 or $1,000 or $500, which still puts them at an advantage. But I don't know.
Or I could coincidentally buy like an easy up in November and then run, and I have it, you know.
So what I said is anything that's used for parties is sent to the any material that's used to the parties is sent to the elections committee. The way we could eliminate the use of how much of the materials that were from the previous year, but it's just I wouldn't say destroy the whole party because you can easily just not use the things. It's just the party's still there, but using the same materials, and that's up for debate amongst your election committee or amongst like you hear like the comments that the senators have to say. But I wouldn't say that because we're putting a cap on $2,000, it would mean to dismantle a whole party. It would just mean like this is the money you can use this year, and then the comment about using the same materials from last year, then that's up for debate. It might be unfair this year. I would say like in the long run, it's not going to be a concern, but it might be this year because maybe last year a party spent a lot more money than $2,000, and there's still materials over like that are left. So yeah, that might be a concern this year. But I know that in the long run, we're not going to have the same concern because $2,000 is like you're going to have to make your budget where you're going to get your flyers, your shirts, and some posters. But I think in the long run we're not gonna have the concern. I know it's a concern right now, but it won't be in the future.
Senator Herman, second.
Yeah, maybe a way that we can meet somewhere in the middle is rather than setting a cap for the whole party, maybe set a cap specifically for promotional items. Things that the party gives out, things like that.
Last year.
Like a total. No, like I'm talking about a total cap, not individual itemized cap. I'm talking like a total cap that the party can spend on promotional items. And that would maybe standardize it more, because a thing that I see, a very easy problem I see in your scenario is a party that has 20 members, another party that has 10. The party that has 10 therefore can use twice as much money per person than the party that has 20 members. So maybe set, and I guess that problem will still be there if we set it for promotional items, but I personally think that might be a solution somewhere in the middle, maybe a minimal solution, because there is a time problem, elections are coming up, it is a bureaucratic process to change the elections code, change the cap, and I think maybe that'd be a suggestions to elections committee, maybe looking into just a cap for promotional items.
I would go back to the $2,000 in total, including promotional items. You mentioned there might be parties that run with 10 people, and other people run with 20. The people running with 20, like most of the campaign, like we've seen, the money is used to promote the party, not the individuals. We have seen times where like individuals promote themselves, but like we've seen that. But when we have a party of 20 people, they're gonna get twice as many votes as someone that has 10 people because like I first say, you have 250 votes that are gonna vote for your whole party, and so we all know like how this works. But it's just we're promoting the $2,000 are used to promote the party most of the time, and at times it's individual, like here and there. But we all know that most of the money is used to promote the party, not the individual.
Naftali, before we continue, considering that here at this meeting we'd be unable to amend them, for like your suggestions, I'm sure that Stephanie would be, I'm guessing, more than happy to have a conversation about this.
Yeah, for sure.
And other people that would like to be able to have input to be able to speak on this matter further. Before I do finish, I'll leave for the last speaker to be your thought.
I'll keep it super brief. Just because we're sharing anecdotes, I'll share one as well, and Michael can attest to that. 2 years ago, me and Michael ran with a party of 6 people versus a full slate of 24. And I would say that it is more beneficial while being a lot less complicated to put a cap on the total cost of promotional items purchased, because even though we were far exceeded in terms of like our fixed assets like cool easy ups, we didn't have any of that, you know. But in terms of elections results, I mean, our per person vote was about, I don't know the exact number, it was about like 700 a person with 6 people versus 20 people that had about 800 or 900 a person, something like that. So it was, I don't think in the end the results like were differing that much based on like having an easy up or having a cool poster. But I did think our promotional items did help a lot. So,
You had any last comments?
I would just say that's one micro example that we can use to justify the total cost. Yeah.
Well, we definitely encourage you to be able to speak up.
Yeah, for sure.
And get your input on these things. Great,
Alright.
thank you so much.
I'll email you so I can go to your next meeting or something. Alright.
Thank you, Charlie.
Alright.
Are there any other members of the gallery that should come forward?
Hi everyone, I'm Abdul Govind, second year political science major, he and his. So I'm actually gonna bounce off what the conversation that we had just right now. It seems to me that campaign finance is is an issue that's a bit more complex than we would have initially thought. It seems that there may be a need for a more comprehensive comprehensive way to address, caps on spending, caps on donations, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, in my opinion, I feel that there should be a cap on party spending as well as a cap on individual spending, so that way we can also address the fact that some parties may be bigger or smaller than others. And in my personal opinion, I feel that there should be individual caps. In my personal opinion, I feel that materials used in previous elections should be reported to the elections office, so that way it could be deducted from their spending limit. So in that sense, it does even the playing field a bit more. These are just ideas that I have. I'm not gonna give a complete spiel on how elections should be run, but I'm just saying that when considering improvements to elections, there needs to be a much more in-depth and longer conversation than the one that we have just had right now, because I feel that this is actually a very big issue. I ran with a party last year, and full disclosure, we didn't spend much each per candidate because a lot of us couldn't afford to spend a lot. And for that reason, this is one of many reasons why we didn't win, but that was a big reason why we didn't win, mainly because we were outspent by the other two parties. But I feel that, like I said, for there to be fair elections and for there to be more, there needs to be more oversight, there needs to be more accountability, and in short, I think that this conversation needs to continue from after tonight. There needs to be just a lot more insight, but that's all I have to say on the matter.
Thank you, Edgar. Are there any members of the gallery that would like to come forward and speak at this time? Okay.
I have a comment to be
Can I go on the different thing?
Yeah.
Alright, cool. So I just wanted you all to think critically about like the other issue on purchasing the intellectual property. Because I totally agree with Delaney's comment. It's just, although like my politics may be a little more left than most of you, I still see the and this is a capitalist thing, that everything has copyright. And I think that education should be free, including books. But we don't live in a communist country in a way. So I also feel like most of and I think we should really the fact that professors in the ethnic studies department are showing us their own literature and their own text that they research, opposed to in science we spend $100 in a book that or more for a breadth requirement that the professor didn't even write. We should be targeting those professors where we use the books on 2 chapters and then we're done. As to oppose a professor that they take about 2 years to write a book, and because not many people write the same things. We shouldn't attack that certain individual, the certain teachers, the certain professors. And then the fact that I don't think we actually, I don't know what the actual like text is, but from what I know, we don't purchase like a professor's intellectual property. Purchasing intellectual property, that means that we own his books, we own his art, we own like whatever he came up with. This he made up his shoes, and his shoes are mine too because that's his intellectual property. Anything he has come up with, he designed he designed the design of his house, he designed it. Then because we're taking this class, is that our intellectual property? So it's just we're paying for the course, we're not paying for the intellectual property. As opposed like you go to in Cuba, the person who took the picture of the famous picture of Che Guevara, just an example. In Cuba, the person who took it, he made no profit off of it, but someone brought it to America, and although that was not their intellectual property, but they got a copyright on it, and they were able to make a lot of money. So yeah, just putting out, we're not purchasing a professor's intellectual property. Intellectual property is really, really, really broad, and that could cover to, like I said, whatever art, books, thoughts they have. As to oppose, like we're taking a class on, for say, like what violence in women, and like that course we're only purchasing that course. We're not purchasing the professor's entire intellectual property. Just putting out there. For example, I would love to own an entire like Bell Hooks collection of books, because but I don't. This is just food for thought. But I totally agree that education should be free, including books. Putting out there.
Taking the time. If there are no other members of the gallery that would like to come forward for public comment, we'll move on to our next item of Senate Association.
Actually, I was hoping to hear what the students' concern was related to that. If they had sent those concerns to her, then I don't see why we.
Well, they were addressed.
Oh, they were addressed. Okay.
Then we can move on to section A of roundtable and announcements. Because we do have closed session, I would smile upon moving through this item rather quickly. So if anybody would like to keep them rather brief, I'd greatly appreciate it. Okay, Senator Jason Ramirez. Pass.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Senator Summershed.
Okay, so two things. We're working on youth consent in external affairs, and so if anyone knows anyone that wants to be part of that, we're just trying to get a base of people who are interested. So just contact me or give them my contact. Also, I just wanted to update everyone that the gender studies requirement went under review for several different committees, including the executive college committees and then educational policy, and it's now in its own committee under review in academic senate. So yeah.
Senator Delaney.
Pass.
Senator Christian.
Just want to thank everyone for coming to today's event. I see some people in the gallery as well, so I'm glad that that brought you here, or for whatever reason. And yeah, thank everyone.
Thank you all for coming out to the event. I just wanted to say good job to Delaney and Reem for their student leadership conference this weekend. It was amazing. As a person who attended the conference, I was so empowered, and I knew all the students, they were as well. We got a lot of outreach happening with our ASUCR table as well, so it was a total overall amazing event. I had a lot of fun things. Remember Juegos de las Manos this Friday. I'm sorry that ASUCR didn't create a team, because I would have loved to beat you all. But if you can still come out, I would greatly appreciate it. You can cheer on our team or any other team, but we'll most likely be the winners. And good luck on midterms to everyone. Thanks.
Why are you laughing?
$3 million. Stephanie President Vice Board. Lawson.
Thank you to Christian, Jackie, Ravine for the event today. It was a lot of fun. Also, shout out to Ravine for the cool marketing giveaways and the wheel. They're really fun to work and fun to give away.
Irish Shane.
Pass.
Jerry Mobley.
Yeah, I want to say congratulations on the event today. It looked like a great success. I actually saw a couple stuff on UCAS about it.
Yeah.
No, so I just want to say like it was really good publicity. Like I remember somebody saying like Highlander said like, oh, you know, nobody knows what ASUCR does. Well, we give out free pizza downstairs. But yeah, so I just wanted to commend you guys for that. And then shout out to Reem again too for that dope project that she's starting. Hopefully like the content is cool. 'Cause I'm definitely gonna answer it.
Marketing Director Peter Cobb?
Yeah, once again, just be on the lookout for the elections video this Friday. I'm sorry the timeline hasn't been working out, but we're doing our best to push them out quick.
Senator Herman.
Yeah, just a quick update on the project that Priscilla and I are working on. I do sit on the Highlander Union Governing Board, and I've met with Todd Wingate, also Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. And we do plan in the near future, hopefully by spring quarter, to have the Hub Rotunda open 24 hours for students to study at, and eventually, maybe hopefully by the end of this year, have the library open 24 hours.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to mention that the Lebanese Social Club, Iranian Student Association, Afghan Student Association, and Students for Justice in Palestine are hosting a Cosmic Bowling Night tomorrow in AMF Riverside Lanes from 8 to 11 p.m. There's going to be a student, it's a college night, so if you bring your student IDs, you'll get a student discount. It's like $7. So I do encourage you all to come and join in on some fun. I also wanted to mention that I met with the Chasteen along with Senator Summer Schaefer earlier this week, and he mentioned to me a project that I'm offering to anyone on the Horseshoe that might want to take it up. It's just providing students with the opportunity to screen movies outdoors, like the Middle Eastern Student Center did not too long ago, and I believe GCAP also does it in the Art Gardens. So if that's something that you might be interested in coordinating or facilitating for students so that they could be more involved, and we can help them be more involved, then I'd be more than happy to talk to you to let you know a little bit more information about that process. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Samuel. Senator Jackson.
Thank you all for the awesome event today. It was such a great turnout. We had some great energy and yummy food. I really appreciate all of the support. It means a lot to me. I'm sorry if I got like sassy or whatever. It's just like how I am. So as I'm sure all know by now. Thank you all for the support. Looking forward to hopefully more events like this in the future, more outreach, more energy, more happy, more scooters. So have a great rest of your week, everyone.
Yes, again, congratulations to Jackie and Christian. It was really great, and I think it was great that you also encouraged us to continue advertising and you kept pushing it on us. So that really helped, let everyone know that it was happening. So I'd also like to take note that tomorrow is the State of Denial protest. ASA is hosting it, and it would be great to see you all there. If you decide to be a part of it, we're wearing all black and we're putting red tape on over our mouths. Also, next Wednesday, ASA will be holding a presentation. A doctor is coming and a graduate student as well for a Q&A session on pre-med, for pre-med students, but any student who wants motivation in their education.
Question. Can you just clarify where the silent protest will be and what time?
Oh, sorry. Silent protest is at the bell tower. The time, I believe, is at 11 a.m. But I can send you all the link to that.
Okay.
Senator Alia.
Oh, pass.
Okay. Moving on, we will now go into closed session. So at this time, I'd like to thank the galley for coming out.
Thank you.
We definitely like hearing all the items that you brought to us. We look forward to being able to collaborate and engage.
Bye, y'all.
Now, because we are really out of time constraint, if we do have a recess, please, we have to keep it brief. So. Okay.